What do Wi-Fi, the moon landing, and debit cards all have in common? They were all prophesied by great thinkers more than a century before they came into existence. Everyone from science fiction writers to billionaire tech gurus to animated sitcoms have been telling us what tomorrow holds, and their track records have been surprisingly on the money. Here are 10 predictions that nobody actually expected to come true, and yet that's exactly what happened. Number 1. Nikola Tesla predicted Wi-Fi and mobile phones, 1909. Over 60 years before the primary mobile phone and 90 years preceding the presentation of Wi-Fi, Nikola Tesla, a talented electrical designer and previous right-hand man of Thomas Edison, told the New York Times in 1909 that it will soon be possible to transmit wireless messages all over the world so simply any individual can carry and operate his own apparatus. Tesla was known as being one of the most baffling men ever. He is most well known for his part in the War of the Currents with Thomas Edison and his commitments to the AC power supply framework. Quite a few years after the fact, the first wireless devices were made, and in 2007, the main iPhone was delivered, proving Tesla right. Number 2. Jules Verne imagined men on the moon in 1865. Over a century prior to Neil Armstrong taking one giant leap for mankind, sci-fi creator Jules Verne wrote about two men headed for the moon aboard a projectile shot from a cannon. In 1865, unbelievable science fiction creator Jules Verne composed a brief tale called From the Earth to the Moon. Verne accomplished something other than foreseeing that we would ultimately be going to the moon. He incorporated some harsh computations that were surprisingly like the actual figures. He set the rocket dispatch location in Florida, a site similar to what Apollo 11 was launched from, and he likewise anticipated the sensation of weightlessness that space travelers would feel, despite not knowing that there would be no gravity in space. Number 3. Nostradamus predicted the Great Fire of London in 1666. The name Nostradamus is inseparable from forecasts. A presumed soothsayer, he's most famous for his book, Les Prophesied, containing various predictions concerning future occasions. French pharmacist Nostradamus distributed a few assortments of predictions during his lifetime, foreseeing, in now and then equivocal language, world occasions from the passing of Henry II to Hitler's rule. One of these expectations went as follows: the blood of the just will be lacking in London, burnt up in the fire of 66. The ancient lady will topple from her high place. Many of the same sect will be killed. London was immersed in fire from September 2nd to September 5th, 1666. It annihilated the city, obliterating 13,000 homes, including tourist spots like St. Paul's Cathedral. Number 4. Edward Bellamy envisaged the debit card in 1888. Debit cards turned out to be broadly utilized in the last part of the 1980s. However, sci-fi essayist Edward Bellamy portrayed a comparative idea in his idealistic novel, Looking Backward, 2000 to 1887, in the late 19th century. In Part 9, Dr. Leet discloses to Mr. West that in the New World, a credit corresponding to his share of the annual product of the nation is given to every citizen, and a credit card issued to him with which he procures at the public storehouses whatever he desires. Bellamy was right on target, although his credit cards worked more like current debit cards. However, it was as yet a mind-blowing forecast, taking into account that today, pretty much every individual with a bank account has a debit card. Number 5. Mark Twain forecast his own death in 1909. Mark Twain was born November 30th, 1835, just after a visit by Halley's Comet. He is one of the greatest writers in American English literature and wrote The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, considered to be a great American novel by many. In 1909, Mark Twain's biographer Albert Bigelow Paine quoted Twain saying, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It's coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it. It will be the greatest disappointment of my life if I don't." The Almighty said, no doubt, "Now here are these two unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together." Samuel Clemens, otherwise known as Mark Twain, died on April 21st, 1910, the day after Halley's Comet reappeared in the sky. Number 6. Robert Boyle predicted organ transplants in the 1660s. Believed today to be the principal present-day scientific expert and one of the authors of current science, Robert Boyle is maybe most popular for Boyle's Law, a test gas law concerning the tension and volume of gas. Almost 300 years ago, Robert Boyle anticipated in a note in his own diary the cure of diseases by transplantation. In 1954, the first effective organ transplantation was finished at Brigham Hospital in Boston, which implies that Boyle incredibly anticipated the principal organ transplant. Specialists likewise credit Boyle for prescience about LSD, ibuprofen, and sleeping pills. Number 7. H.G. Wells predicted the atomic bomb in 1914. The first nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan in August 6, 1945. The second one was dropped on Nagasaki a couple of days after the first. Yet, the first anecdotal nuclear bomb was dropped in H.G. Wells's 1914 novel, The World Set Free. However, the book was distributed no less than 30 years before the prodigies at the Manhattan Project started attempting to make the definitive weapon. Wells figured out how to catch the overwhelming impacts of a nuclear blast. Perished museums, cathedrals, palaces, libraries, galleries of masterpieces, and a vast accumulation of human achievement whose charred remains lie buried, he wrote. A legacy of curious material that only future generations may hope to examine. In the story, Wells depicts a nuclear bomb, which made a booming clamor in the sky and delivered radioactive fumes that remained risky long after the bomb detonated, guaranteeing a much more noteworthy number of deaths. Obviously, after 32 years, the United States dropped 2 nuclear bombs on the Japanese urban areas of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, with scarily comparative outcomes. Number 8. Ray Bradbury foretold earbuds in 1953. There's very little in Ray Bradbury's 1953 tragic novel, Fahrenheit 451, that we needed to work out as expected sometime in the future. Yet there's one detail that we're happy turned into a reality. In the general public of Bradbury's book, the people are fixated on entertainment and should constantly be distracted by mass media. Bradbury portrayed the now universal smaller-than-expected earphones along these lines. And in her ears the little seashells, the thimble radios tamped tight, an electronic ocean of sound, of music, and talk, coming in on the shore of her unsleeping mind. This sounds very much like the current fad of the present wireless earbuds, but with way greater government mind control. Number 9. Arthur C. Clarke imagined the iPad in 1968. Of the relative multitude of future forecasts made in Stanley Kubrick's magnum opus 2001: A Space Odyssey, there's one that the film got completely right. It's not the lunar settlements or zero-gravity attendants, but instead the tablet utilized by space explorers that looks practically indistinguishable from present-day iPads. As creator Arthur C. Clarke depicted it in the 1968 novel of the similar name, these gadgets were designated newspads and could be plugged into the ship's information circuit to scan the latest reports from Earth. The postage stamp-sized rectangle would expand until it neatly filled the screen. When an astronaut had finished reading the article, he could flash back to a complete page and select a new subject for detailed examination. Unfortunately, neither Kubrick nor Clarke lived long enough to see the iPad become invented in 2010. Number 10. John Brunner predicted the 2010 American president in 1968. Anticipating that the United States would sometime or another have an African-American president is not unreasonably amazing. Foreseeing that the United States would have an African-American president an entire 40 years before it occurred, and picking his name as President Obomi, well, you have our attention. Stand on Zanzibar, an honor-winning 1969 sci-fi novel set in 2010, was only 2 letters off the genuine future president's last name. One of the eeriest predictions ever made, John Brunner's novel has America set in 2010 is controlled by President Bellamy. How would you start to explain that? Creator John Brunner likewise anticipated DVRs, satellite news, terror threats, and legal marijuana. Yet, we actually can't move past the President Bellamy character. Which of these strange predictions do you find most exciting? Let us know down below. And as always, thanks for watching.